Hey, everybody, welcome to the show. We are here November 21st, 10 p.m. Eastern. Welcome, everybody. Want to welcome all of our listeners that aren't joining us live on all, excuse me, my goodness, on all of our various platforms out there listening around the world. Welcome. Glad you could join us. Welcome to the people that are joining us live. I see Griff out there. Welcome, Griff. Prospecting USA. Welcome, buddy. How you doing? I'm not seeing any other names commenting, so guys, let me know you're here. Give you a shout out. Mark Paul, greetings from Swanton, Ohio. Welcome, Mark. Appreciate you. I'm going to do an audio check, guys. As always, make sure I'm coming to you loud and clear. Let me know if you can hear me. I'm sure you can see me, unfortunately, but that's just kind of how it goes. Welcome. Griff is already in and asking, flying rods. I'm assuming you don't mean the fishing rods my dad used to throw when the big one got away. Nope. Not talking about fishing rods, but that's I understand how that works with throwing the rods away when the big one gets away. We're going to talk a different type of flying rods, or as I generally call them, skyfish. There's multiple words for them. All right, Mark is saying loud and clear. Fantastic. I'm testing out a few new things. I got my new Bluetooth earbuds that work as a microphone. You can't even really see them, so I really like them. And I'm kind of doing something different with the background. As you can see, I got the brick wall back here. Using a background allows me to have a little more light in here without distracting you all with the background, so I can kind of see more of what I'm doing. So that's going to make it a little bit easier on my side. Mark, sharing with your group. Well, I appreciate that. What's your group, Mark? We'll plug it. We'll put it out there. Anybody else out there coming in? All right. It's one of the things with StreamYard. It doesn't tell me who's in my audience, unfortunately. So if you don't comment, I don't know you're here, which is kind of annoying, but just how it is. And obviously, it doesn't show me necessarily all my Facebook people and all that kind of stuff. So again, if you're watching, welcome. We're going to have a fun show tonight. This is another listener request. They wanted some info on sky rods. Brian Barber, welcome. There you are. Thank you. Appreciate it. As always, guys, the ones that are here live, if you have any questions, feel free to type them while we're having our discussion. All caps so I can pinpoint them. And I try and answer the questions as we go as much as we can. I don't mind the interruption and kind of going back and forth. I think that's a great way to have it. It's very informal. We're just having a discussion. Brian Barber, welcome. Nice to see you, buddy. Little Twisted, welcome. There's the man himself, Grizzly Chris. All right, so sky rods. Some of y'all might be familiar with this one. Some of you might not. This is kind of an old school cryptid thing. I don't really consider it a cryptid, but more of just a kind of a paranormal Fortean subject. So we'll get into the history of sky rods, kind of where they come from, and what people think about them, and kind of where we are now with them. So let's go ahead and jump into it. We are going to do sky rods. They are known by lots of different names. Like I said, I use skyfish. Some people call them solar entities, air rods. Technically, it could be defined as a UAP, which would be an unidentified aerial phenomenon. So rods. What is a rod, everybody? So air rods are translucent or white creatures that appear on video and in pictures, but can't generally be seen with the naked eye. Typically ranging in length from 4 inches to 3 feet. Air rods have appendages that appear like fins or rapidly moving bee wings along their cylindrical shape. So this is kind of a general description. The thing with rods is what I find is there might be a couple different things going on here. So you're going to find a little bit different descriptions. Like this one here talks about 4 inches to 3 feet. And yet later on, they'll be discussing rods upwards of 100 feet. And so we'll discuss kind of what's going on here and what the differences is. As usual, in my opinion, for a lot of this stuff, there's a couple different phenomenon occurring that are getting lumped all together based on a commonality, and I don't think it should. So rods really first came about 90s. So March 19th, 1994. On March 5th, 1994, Jose Escamilla videotaped 16 minutes of UFO sightings over Midway, New Mexico. On that day, there was no clouds in the skies, and he filmed basically the batteries ran out on his old video camera, and he captured a bunch of UFOs. Midway, New Mexico is not that far from Roswell, just a stone's throw, so he's out there trying to film UFOs. On March 19th, he captured what he considers the very first rod objects video. It was on this day that the objects made themselves known to Jose, and in this article it said now 10 years later, 10 years of research have led the investigation into what may be the single most significant discovery of life forms that are among us that we have never seen before. And there is a website I reference here. It's called Roswell Rods. Kind of a real basic website. I don't think it's really kept up to date anymore, but it's got a lot of basic information. And it's one of the places where I did pull some info from. So who is this Jose Escamilla? Is he just a guy out there randomly filming UFOs? Well, no, he's actually in the video business. He's a producer and director, a composer, and a discoverer of the rods phenomenon, as they like to bill him. He's been editing and filming video for over 20 years. Video production and release nationwide include LA Gang Violence, a documentary about LA gangs, and Donnie, the educational dinosaur cartoon series. The dates are going to be off a little bit because this was taken in the early 2000s, so now you're talking over 40 years to date that Jose has been dealing with professionally videography and film and video and stuff. In '85, he put together a world event entitled 1 Minute of Peace, where he asked everyone in the world to stop what they were doing all together for 1 minute in honor of Samantha Smith and Children of the World. He performed the title song at the Hollywood Bowl and via satellite worldwide, and the 1 Minute of Peace project was underway. And the reason we're talking about who he is so we have a background of kind of where he's coming from. He's a professional, he's an event coordinator, taken seriously in the professional world for what he was doing. Aside from Jose's work with many artists and celebrities, there was a whole list of them in his biography. A lot of Spanish celebrities, and then transferring over to some American ones. I don't want to get into all of that. Jose's UFO experiences occurred midway, New Mexico, March 5th, have put him on a variety of lectures and television and radio programs talking about the subject. He's appeared on television shows such as The Learning Channel, Geraldo Rivera, Hard Copy, Sightings, Encounters, Inside Edition, the BBC London, and a bunch of other Spanish programs as well, and a lot of news broadcasts. So when this first hit, rods were kind of a big deal. He's appeared in UFO-related magazines, America Online, CompuServe, newspapers, radio talk shows, several times on Coast to Coast AM, speaking at conferences and all this kind of stuff. So he was really big and active promoting this idea of rods. He's basically the main proponent of it. So rods, what are we talking about? What do they look like? On that Roswell Rods website, they had a little slideshow here put together, and they were just general pictures that had been sent in. And this gives you a kind of an idea of what we're talking about rods. You're going to see a couple of different types. And then we'll kind of break it down a little bit as to what we're talking about with the different types. So some of the rods are basically what some people would refer to as just UFOs, as far as cigar shape, the long flat ones. Well, these are considered rods based on their shape. These are the ones that I classify in my personal mind as something different. To me, this is a true UAP. We don't know what it is. The problem is when we're looking at something against the background of the sky, if we can't identify what it is, it's really, really hard, especially in photographs, because photographs are two-dimensional. That shows we don't really know the distance away from the viewer, and it's really hard to judge the size, especially when we're on a backdrop like that. Okay, here's another one. Now this one you can kind of see what they refer to as the fins, which brings the name skyfish. Okay, you can see along there. I'm using my mouse so you can see it, but I know you can't. Okay, here's another rod that we see up in the sky. Again, I classify these ones as UAPs. Another one along a jet contrail there. Here's a larger one taken. I believe this was said it was taken from an airplane. And again, we can kind of see the wings on the side there with the solid rod in the middle. All right, now here's your more traditional rod. These ones, I believe, are not as mysterious. Smaller ones, you take them outside. You can do it in your backyard and find them. Again, but you can see the similarity in shape and the wings. These are the ones you're talking, 3 to 4 inches. Sometimes they'll say they're bigger. And then another, barely faint, you can see it there. One of the large rods up in the sky. Couple of videos. I don't normally do videos on here. There's always the concern that we'll get dinged for them. These ones I pulled directly off of websites that were showing them publicly, so I think we're good. And they'll give you an idea of what we're looking at, and you really need to see them in action for you to kind of understand how this works. If you're just listening and you're not being able to view this, you're just listening into us, feel free to go and just research and look up on YouTube videos of rods, flying rods, and you'll see exactly what we're talking about here. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this up onto the stage. And let me see here. I'm going to do that. So this is a video from somebody's backyard. As you can see the house and everything there. And you'll see some activity flying through the screen there. They slow it down. As you see the shape and the wings. I believe it's in there's the real time. If you were just watching your own recording in real time. And you can see how fast that goes through there. Okay. And then I'll pull up this other one here. Are you guys familiar with this? Have you seen these before? Let me know. Here's another great website that I found, jeffreymore.com. A good article. And here is the video that we want to see. Ah, we lost it. There it goes. So as you can see again, this is someone's backyard or somewhere in the woods. Here's the tree, and you can see them kind of darting around. There's a really good one. So as we can see, they're talking about two different things, right? We have these ones here that are outside ground level, right? And then we have the ones up in the sky that appear to be massively big. And I think they're two different things, assuming the size and the distance are what we think they are as far as UAP style. All right, so that is that. So those are the two videos real quick that I wanted to show you. So now we have an understanding of what we're looking at, okay? Pam Harris is joining us. Hi, Pam. Welcome to the show. Griff says she's seen a few photos and videos showing them. Some had orbs in them. Yep, there is kind of a connection with orbs here. A Little Twisted said, yes, seen them. Gerald and Jane at Midwest has them all over their place. Okay, so yeah, you guys are kind of familiar with them. So what is Jose saying here? He's the guy that kind of brought them to light. He's the one that proponents of them. This was pulled from fatemag.com. He did an interview with them. So I kind of pulled little bits and pieces out of that, put it together. So there's a phenomenon that exists among us. They're like skyfish. They swim through the air like fish. So that's where skyfish comes from. At first, I thought they were insects or birds, you know, floating close to the lens of the camera. However, at such a high shutter settings, he says, he eliminated the possibility of it being an insect or a bird, but something else more mysterious. Each object has its own certain footprint and its own certain pattern of flight. You can tell what an insect looks like. You can tell what a bird looks like, a dragonfly, and a rod is a rod, he said. So he's distinguishing the fact that he says in his research, he understands that there are certain phenomena that could cause a bird or an insect to look a certain way, but he's saying he's eliminated those due to different shutter speeds and basically how they look as they're flying through the air. I didn't find any of that specific information. I don't know if it's not out there on the internet just because of the time frame. Just a little, couldn't find it. Midwest Night Watchers, welcome, welcome. Escamilla calls this entity a rod, and he says they measure from 1 to 6 feet long with a cylinder body and multiple sets of wings. We think it's a living entity of some kind. It does have behavior of being alive, said Escamilla. They're very evasive and they're super fast. We don't know what they're doing here. We don't know how long they've been here, he said. We have rock carvings that appears to show rods on carved drawings from 50,000 years ago. I couldn't find what he was referencing there. Again, I couldn't find anything on his specific research. And I tried to find that, but I couldn't locate it. Doesn't mean it's not out there. It just means I couldn't find it. Escamilla has seen rods in photographs and videos of space and even underwater. He even spied one in a video taken from Sky News 9 during tornado coverage in 1999. He says those rods are huge. The one rod that comes out of the top of a cloud, the cloud front was 10 miles away from the helicopter, and it comes out in 3 frames. That thing must have been 100 feet in length, said Escamilla. So even he's saying they can be massive. You know, he even said it's up to 6 feet, but now he's talking, this one was 100 feet. And they use film speed, right? So we're talking back in the days really before they were using digital, and they could still measure film speed and frames, and they could calculate size and distance and get a rough estimation. And just like they did with like the speed of patty and all this other kind of stuff when using film versus digital. All right, but what do the skeptics say? What do the skeptics say about the sky rods? Little twisted chat's freezing up. Yeah, I'm having a little bit of connections problem tonight too. I know there's a lot of storms going on. 15 states or so are under winter advisory warnings right now. I know fiance Jennifer up in Kentucky saying that they got winter weather advisory upwards of 6 inches possible. So having a little bit. I'm not here in Florida. We're not having any snow issues, but we're issues. So I apologize for that. So what do the skeptics say about the rods? Famous 14 skeptic Benjamin Rafford. I've never seen him agree with anything. He's basically the biggest skeptic I've ever seen out there. But he does give logical explanations, so I don't mind referencing him. It's always good to be a little skeptical. He wrote an article for the Skeptical Inquiry called Mysterious Invisible Rods. Pretty good article. And he puts in there, curiously and very tellingly, rods almost invariably only appear in photographs, films, and videotapes. To an investigator, this is a big red flag, suggesting the phenomenon is a photographic artifact. In a nutshell, rods are to cryptozoology or UFOs what orbs are to ghosts. So basically what he's saying here, like a lot of people feel most of the orbs, if not all the orbs caught on film are, dust particles and then moisture in the air and such as that. And so they're easily dismissed. And while I can agree that, I'm sure a good portion of them caught are that, I do believe there's phenomenon involved in it. But I think a lot of the real phenomenon gets dismissed because it's also, very easily replicated using these other things. Jennifer McDaniels, hello, just woke up. We were just talking about you and the weather you're having up there in Harlan. So that's what he's talking about. Bob Duhamel, I'm sure I butchered that name, editor of AmSky, an online amateur astronomy magazine, wrote a detailed analysis of Escamilla's rods. He began by noting a photographic phenomenon so unremarkable as to be virtually ignored, namely that fast-moving objects appear elongated in photographs. When a blurred streak appears on a photograph, most of us will see it as a fast-moving object. Jose Escamilla sees it as an unidentified life form. So he's basically just calling them out right there. Are the rods perhaps merely flying insects caught on film? Doug Ianega, an entomologist at the University of California, Riverside, noted that a rod is videographic artifact based on the frame capture rate of the video cam versus the wing beat frequency of the insects. Okay, so here's a couple of guys that are saying, no, they're the real thing. It's a trick of the camera. Longer exposure, and you get these rods. You're getting it moving through multiple wing beats, and that's where the long 4, 5, 6 wings on each side comes in, or the elongated body comes in. So essentially what you see is several wing beat cycles of the insect on each frame of the video, creating the illusion of a rod with bulges along its length. The blurred body of the insect as it moves forward forms the rod, and the oscillation of the wings up and down forms the bulges. Anyone with a video camera can duplicate the effect if you shoot enough footage of flying insects from the right distance. Skeptics like Mark Zimmerman an assistant professor of photography at the University of Central Oklahoma in Edmond. He states, I hate to call myself a skeptic, but I'm probably labeled as that because I just think there's some sort of scientific answer for things like this. I think it's interesting and makes for a good topic of discussion. And he tells a story about teaching. And one of the assignments, one of the students went out to a graveyard and took a bunch of pictures and came up with something they called a rod. And then they debunked it right kind of then and there as they were talking about it. Wanting to prove his point, Zimmerman shot a series of photographs at different exposure times around the porch light, capturing what appears to be objects similar to rods, but actually turned out to be moths. Like other camera experts, Zimmerman says cameras are capable of producing artifacts, something in the picture that wasn't actually there. So discussion, what do you guys think? What do I think? Well, I think there's a couple of different things going on here. And here's the debate, right? So we have Jose, who is a video professional. I don't know his expertise as far as, operating the cameras and what he knows about the mechanics, but I would assume being a producer and a director and making documentaries and working with TV, that he has a solid understanding. And he's going, even before these guys are talking about it, that this can't be just a speed issue and all this kind of stuff. He's saying that with the frame and all this kind of stuff, that he went into all that. And what he's calling as verified rods aren't that. Now, he admits that that phenomenon can happen where an insect can fly through on a longer exposure. But as he quoted earlier, you can tell the flight patterns if it's a video. You can tell the difference. And so he admits that that phenomenon happens, that there are the artifacts, and yet this is something totally different. Pyromedic's joining us tonight. Hey, Pyro, how you doing? Little Twisted said, I think we need to go back to Polaroid. Yeah, there's a lot of researchers that feel that film is still the best way to go, as opposed to digital. Manipulation is a lot harder on film, and they just think you get a truer picture without the digitization, the pixelation, all this other kind of stuff. You can zoom in better. You can get the negatives and analyze the negatives and, do stuff like that with them. So they're better for research. On the other hand, you have these experts in photography and entomology, the insects, saying that, no, this is something we've always known about. It's really nothing new. This is, exactly what it is. And we know about it. You're just seeing it for the first time and going, oh man, this is crazy. And basically making a mountain out of a molehill. So that's kind of the skeptical side of it, is going, we know what this is. This isn't a big deal. So what do you guys think? Like, who do you trust on that? Where do you go with that? I know Grizzly stance. You saw before, they're not insects. Well, I would have to agree that the ones that we see up in the air, or the ones that we saw earlier, right at the beginning ones, those probably aren't insects. Those would be UAPs. Those would be cigar-shaped UFOs, and I think those have been seen for a really long time. But I think some of the ones that people are getting outside of their house, flying through, I think those could very easily be insects. And just the artifacts with the shutters and the way the light hits on them. Just like with orbs, there could be legitimate orbs. I believe there are. But a lot of what's being put out there as orbs just aren't. They're being mistaken for orbs. We have to be careful with that. As a researcher, if that's your area, you need to be able to differentiate between the two. Midwest Night Watchers, Barb's skyfish disappeared into the outside wall of her house on video. Did it disappear, or and I'm not saying anything against Barb because I know she gets a lot of great stuff. If it could potentially have been an insect, it could have just gotten out of the light range, stopped reflecting the light, so the camera stopped picking it up. And that's one of those things we have to think about. Prospecting USA, hunting America's treasures. I think the mechanical cameras get clearer pictures of critters. I think they do better, especially from a research one. Pyromedic caught one in the winter when only the hardiest bugs could be out, 36 degrees. Yeah, there you go. What do we do about the skyfish or the rods that are being seen in the winter? Obviously, not a lot of bugs flying around. I didn't find any specific videos that would have been in the winter, but that's a very good point. Very good point. Griff says, getting harder to find film for mechanical cameras. Then they process the pics and you don't get your negatives back. Yeah, you got to be careful with it. And that's true. That's the problem with it. Midwest Night Watchers. We captured our videos of skyfish in the winter of 17 degrees when there's no insects out. So Midwest, let me ask you this. What type of skyfish did you get? Did you get these small ones that we saw darting around in the video? Or did you get the larger ones up in the sky like UFOs? I'm curious about that. You let us know. If you got in 17 degrees, I don't know of any bugs that are out in 17-degree weather. And let me know, was it daytime or nighttime? That'd be good to know. That went through a lot faster than I expected tonight, guys. Wow. I worked on that for a couple of days and I had all my almost enough slides that I usually have, and then boom, there you go. Chris says they have a cool video of a rod going into an orb. Okay. I can't make judgment on any of these because I haven't seen them. I tend to be more on the skeptical side, even though I'm an open believer in 14 subjects. I'm also skeptical that, you know, what does the video really show versus what we want it to show. So I'm always very analytical of it. Griff says she's enjoying Thursday night shows. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Let me know of any topics you guys want to come up. I don't have a topic for next week. So that's the hardest part for my show, is finding topics that I think you guys would be interested in. So I'm always looking for suggestions. Always looking for them. You see, you can email me down there, tnsasquatch21@gmail.com. Send me suggestions. That one is just designated for my 14, Bigfoot and research stuff, so it doesn't get lost in my main email. And you send me stuff down there, mention up here, find me on Facebook, send me stuff. I don't know if the chat's still on. There we go. Midwest Night Watchers. Nighttime, they were flying around at all different heights, but not as high as planes or UFOs that we could see. Very interesting. So I would say my take is I think we need to have a more serious study on rods and skyfish before we can say what it is. And I think we need to acknowledge the fact that, some of them could definitely be insects. We need to be aware of that phenomenon. And we need to have somebody out there that tests it and shows it and breaks it down and says, okay, if it is a moth and this is what's happening with the long exposure, this is what it looks like. And I have seen that in a couple of documentaries over the years, but I don't see it mainstream. Pyromedic nighttime triggered by a deer, looks to be 2 feet in length. Okay. And again, with the camera, it's always hard to judge distance and length of an unknown simply because it's a 2D picture. Even if you have it measured up against, let's say it was right in front of the deer, average deer, I don't know, 5, 6 feet long. You can kind of get you just don't know the distance between the deer and the camera as the rod would be. So it could be really close. And so it's a lot smaller. You know what I mean? So that's always the hard part when you're dealing with stuff like that. Not saying people can't figure it out, just that makes it more difficult. And a lay person who doesn't have that ability to, just can't really do it. Pyromedic, I've never seen a bat captured by a game camera, though. Camera traps, yes. Game camera, I don't think they're fast enough to catch them. Midwest Night Watcher says the ones we caught on video seem to be 12 inches or longer. And I'm assuming you're still referring to the nighttime 17 degrees out. So you guys that have seen them and captured them, what do you think they are? What is your take on it? You guys have experience in them? You've seen them? At least in the film? What do you guys think they are? What's your take on them? Let's find that out. You guys think that some could possibly be insects and they're being misidentified just in the excitement of catching something on film? Or do you think that's just a bunch of hogwash? Midwest Night Watchers, we have bats in the video. Outdoor cameras. Are those like outdoor CC cameras or are they game cameras, right? Because game cameras have to be triggered, and usually by the time the motion is triggered, the bat's already gone. But if you have like outdoor surveillance cameras, then that's a different kind of system. So I could definitely see bats on something like that, especially if you have a feeder, hummingbird feeder, or something set up where they'll go out for the nectar. Live feed security. Yeah, exactly. So they're not trigger cameras. And that's what I was saying before with the trigger cameras. There is that little bit of delay. And so I can see where you can't get a bat on that one. That makes sense to me. What else, guys? Any more stories out there? And again, you guys that have experienced them, what do you think? What do you think they are? I've read some theories saying that these were basically the ancestors of some of the very first insects, and they evolved. I don't follow that theory myself, but people believe. So we got to consider the fact that they were some of the early insects to evolve. They're more gliders instead of flapping, flying wings like we see nowadays. So they're different body mechanisms. I've heard that there's some kind of interdimensional other being that we can just see sometimes. That's why generally you can only see them on camera. I've heard some people mention that they can see them with their naked eye. So that would be interesting. I don't know if that's a frequency thing like we've talked about where some people can see things other people can't. Pyromedic, I'm not sure. I don't know how fast shutter speed is on the camera to maybe stretch an insect. I know it happens. I know they've done testing to show it can happen. But you're right. I don't know if that's standard setting on your video camera or not, like how that would apply. Or what speed would it have to be going to make that happen on a standard camera? That'd be good questions for experts. Midwest Night Watchers, maybe spirits or dimensional beings. I don't know. Yeah. That's what some people are saying, especially some of the larger ones that people say they see. That definitely, I mean, there's only so many options it can be, right? There's only so many options it can be. They don't seem to follow the law of the physics as far as how they fly. the larger ones, if they do what we think they do, which is the undulating fins along the sides of them. Definitely something interesting. I would like to see more concentrated research on it being put out there. If you guys know anybody, like I said, all the articles I found were just rehash articles that were current, or they were from the early 2000s and the 90s. Pyromedic, it looks like it beats 10 to 12 times in the picture. If it is wing beats, could be. Because I mean, I know about long exposure film, especially on camera film, the old film. They had long exposure, could produce all kinds of different effects, and that's how some of the early hoaxes were performed. Long exposure films would create smears or would be ghosts disappearing into walls and all this kind of stuff. So it is possible. Prospecting USA, Hunting America's Treasures says some are slow and others are fast. Are you meaning cameras and camera speed, shutter speeds? Or are you talking about the rods? When you say some are slow and some are fast. And guys, any other topics, anything you want to discuss next week? Anything you guys are seeing out there, that trend that you want to know more about? Anything you heard that you would like to dig into a little bit? Prospect said the rods. So the rods, some are slow and some are fast. Little Twist said, I find it interesting for as long as we've had digital cameras, this is not talked about more. Well, some people put forth the idea that we're not seeing them as much because we've gone from digital cameras to film cameras. I didn't see any evidence to back that up specifically, but the idea is there's a lot less of that artifacting on the newer digital cameras. Midwest Night Watchers, they don't seem to have wings like a bird or fins. They look like ribbons on both sides of their body that looks like waves in a ribbon. Yeah, absolutely. The undulations. The undulations, that is what it appears to be. But again, if it was a long exposure, if the wing was closer to the camera, you're going to see it much more substantially. And then if it's, flapping away from the camera, then it's going to be not as bright. If it's, the light reflection, it's going to be a little dimmer, a little bit more translucent. So you're going to get the same effect. Right. So this is really where the controversy comes in, because is it what it looks like, or is it artifacts, and is it tricks of the eye, tricks of the camera? That's where the big discussion comes in. I've never, they say, I found this great quote that I saw where it says, rods are one of the few things that even skeptics say are real, but it's just a matter of what they are. Some seem to spiral or have a corkscrew movement. Yep. There's definitely a lot of interesting things out there. But again, you have something moving at a high rate of speed with different shutter rates can produce some very interesting effects. A little twisted. Is it a glitch in the camera or a glitch in our reality simulation construct? Yeah. And here's the thing is there's no answers, right? We don't know. Could be 100 different things. Like I said, I tend to split it up in a couple different categories. I definitely go along with the idea that some of them could be the insect theory. That makes sense to me. I've seen it where people have kind of proved it. Now, were they spot on with all the rods? No. There's some that I've seen that are to me, seem very clear and crisp and not like smudgy and overexposed looking. But I have seen the ones where you can look at it and go, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's some kind of bug. So I think there's a few different things being involved there, and they're all getting thrown in. And then again, the cigar-shaped UFOs that people are calling rods just because they look like a giant pretzel rod or something. Again, it goes back to the idea of be careful what you're calling things. Words have meanings. And just because somebody said, I saw a rod, get some clarifying questions in there to see what exactly they're talking about. Same thing if they say they saw a Bigfoot, they saw a dogman, they saw a UFO, they saw a gremlin, they saw a goblin, whatever it is they say they saw, get some clarifying questions. Toss out the name of what they're calling it and get descriptions. And you may find that you're actually coming across something different than what they're calling it. They just don't know any better. You know? Any suggested topics for next week, guys? We got a good chatting audience tonight. Any suggestions of stuff that we can go over? I can kind of dig into a little bit. If not, I'll have to come up with something, or Grizzly will give me an assignment. He does that every now and then. Somebody will email him asking about something, or something will come up in one of the 100 shows that he's got that he goes, hey, Justin would be good at digging at that. Sky jellyfish, yeah, we can segue into sky jellyfish. I don't know if I can get a whole show out of it, but I'll look into it. I do want to give a shout out. This past weekend, I went to David Shealy and his Skunk Ape Research headquarters down here in Florida. Had a great time. I picked up this new book. It's not going to show it very well. There it goes. The Everglades Skunk Ape Research and Field Guide, 3rd edition. All kinds of stuff has his research in it. Had a good time. David was there. Got to talk to him a little bit. They were actually putting on a special event hosted by Marie DeMont, another great researcher in the Bigfoot field, Mid-Florida Bigfoot research. They are big into alligator wrangling, alligator wrestling. And so they're starting up, I guess it's their own new organization, the World Alligator Wrestling Federation or something like that. I don't know the exact name of it. I got the t-shirt. I'm not looking at it. But it was kind of like their inaugural coming out. And so they had some amazing alligator handlers there. They gave a show about what they did, how they did, why they did, and the history of it. Had a great time. So thanks, David, for hosting it at your Skunk Ape Research headquarters. David Shealy has promised me he'll come on the show when we can make our schedules work. And Marie, it's always great to see you and talk to you. Marie's a friend of the show, and she's a friend of mine. So I had to give a shout out to them. Had a good time. All right, guys, if we got nothing else out there, Little Twisted said, let me think I'll email you. Thank you. Again, for listening, that email is tnsasquatch21@gmail.com. And for our worldwide listeners, I research stuff worldwide. So if there is something in your country, in your area that you want to know about, let me know. I've done a lot of shows about worldwide stuff. So email me, tnsasquatch21@gmail.com. Griff is still talking about jellyfish, the sky jellies, fact or fake. Remember my thoughts on current videos, especially TikTok, YouTube. None of that can really be trusted anymore because of the current state of AI, Photoshop, all that kind of stuff. So if it's a current phenomenon, only caught on video, I'm going to already put it in the Doubting Thomas kind of section. A little twisted, fantastic topic tonight. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for the suggestion. Grizzly told me to do this one. He is adamant they're not insects. Adamant. All right, guys, let's go ahead and wrap it up. It's been a long week. I'm getting a little tired. You guys are an awesome audience. I appreciate each and every one of you. Oh, Midwest. I will say I've been live on video, not able to see insects visible to the naked eye, but the skyfish went right by me on the video. Yeah, that's one of the claims, is you can only see it on video. Absolutely. All right, guys, as Grizz would say, from coast to coast and around the world, thank you all so much for joining in. I will see you all next week. And let's go out with something a little different tonight. Let me see here. You guys probably get tired of seeing the same one. Let's see one of the new ones they put together. Here we go, guys. Y'all have a great night. We'll see you next week.
Stop the phone,